Okay, so we are connected on Facebook.
So we welcome our audience today to another session with our we welcome our viewers today to another session with our very scholarly speaker Shri Pratik Desai. Pratik ji is very well read on the Vaishnav scriptures and makes a very earnest attempt to uh, go into the details of various subject matters related to spirituality, which can be very uh, informative and packed with knowledge for the youth which is struggling to come to terms with living in the material world with the spiritual uh, side of life. So, Pratik ji, uh, today we'd like you to tell us something about what every young person, when we approach or when there is a discussion about God, every young person has this thing in his mind that, oh, really? Does God really exist? We have not seen God. Have you seen God? So, does God really exist? And isn't money more important than God? So, topics connected to this subject, if you can take some time to throw some light on these subject matters.
Okay, so thank you, Rajiv ji, for the kind invitation and your willingness to host the show for the benefit of so many people and connecting them to spiritual lives to actually deepen their faith in spirituality without any counts, without any doubts, so that they can.
You speak a little louder?
Oh, you're not able to hear?
Slightly louder if you can.
Yeah, so I was saying that thank you so much, Rajiv ji, for connecting people with spirituality through this show because there are so many doubts. People's um, their minds and hearts are contaminated. They are covered by clouds of ignorance, and through knowledge, we are trying to destroy that ignorance as well as we are trying to dissipate the cloud of ignorance. So that is very important. Then only people can practice spiritual life uh, as a scientific process with faith, with conviction, and with interest. So, yeah, your question about yeah, does God exist? So this is a question which generally atheistic people ask, but unfortunately, even the practitioners, or I mean, I would not say practitioners, maybe those who are having some sort of faith in spirituality, in God, but because they are not able to perceive it as a scientific process and they are not able to get answers to the questions. So then they start questioning their own faith and then they come up with all these questions. So it is uh, our current generation, they are also influenced by the Western world to a great extent. And although in the Western world, people also believe in God, but the belief is very meager and it's very shallow also. So people they may believe in God, but they hardly know understand about God, the nature of God, His qualities, and the activities of God. So that's why they start losing faith in God. Although externally they want to depend on someone, they want to have a support system because what we have experienced in the material world is that everyone undergoes suffering and we are not the controllers, right? So because we are not the controllers, someone is controlling us, and there are like we desire something, but there are a lot of obstacles in achieving those desires to fulfill those desires. So that's why we want someone to facilitate our desires. And because we know that we are not the controllers, Lord is the supreme controller, everything is under His control. So we want to make our desires fulfill by making God as an instrument. So this is the only thing that people want in life. And that's why gradually with time, they start losing faith in God. So this is like one of the questions that is frequently asked not just by the atheist class of people, but even by those who believe in God, those who are also doing some kind of rituals. But because they are not able to experience the hand of God in all the circumstances, and they are not able to, and because they have not studied scriptures, they are not connected to a particular part, to a particular disciplic succession. That's why it is difficult to somehow develop that faith in God. So now the question is that okay, why can't we see God? Or the claim is that there's so many devotees are there, they are worshiping the Lord since a long time, since so many years with faith, but they are also not able to see God because when we talk to devotees and when we challenge them that can you show us God, maybe they cannot show us God, but they themselves also admit that we are not seeing God. So now there are different ways of seeing God, and the way these people they want to see God is it's a very advanced stage. Like they want to see God personally, physically, and actually in the scriptures it is very well stated, very clearly and very well stated that God does not appear in Kali Yuga. So what does that mean? It does not physically appear before us. Like in other yugas, Satyuk, Tritva, Dwapar, he used to appear in front of us physically. But this does not happen in Kali Yuga. And that is the privilege of the Lord. So the Lord, he desires something because the Lord is, um, whatever the Lord desires, it happens because he is the ultimate controller. So the Lord desires that he does not want to appear in Kali Yuga because most of the people in Kali Yuga, they are all impious. All the impious people, they take birth in Kali Yuga. Whereas pious people, they take birth in Satyug, Trita and Dwapar. That's why the Lord is physically present. We can see also. Not just the devotees, but everyone can see. The atheist, the demons, they all can see God. But in Kali Yuga, the Lord does not appear. So this is the privilege of God. Now, so what then about the devotees who are worshipping God? If God does not appear, then why they are worshipping God? So now, although God physically does not appear, but then God can definitely appear personally to individual, depending on their advanced level of consciousness, advanced level of spirituality. Okay, so that leads a lot of purification, and especially in terms of getting free from lust, anger, envy, greed, pride. Unless we have these qualities, how can we see God? Because He's all pure. He's not at all contaminated. He has a Sachidan form, uh, full of eternity knowledge on this. So he's not made up of any bad qualities, negative qualities. So how can we perceive Lord if we have these qualities? So it is not possible to see God with our gross material eyes in Kali Yuga. Whereas in previous yugas, we could see with our gross material eyes. Now, what is actually the meaning of seeing God? So that is stated in the scriptures that how can you see the Lord and how can you perceive the Lord? That is only possible by the eyes of love, by the tinge eyes which are tinged with love of God. So repeatedly Krishna talks about this in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktyam mam abhijanati yavan yashati tato mam tatpada gyatva. So this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, in that Krishna clearly states uh, that one can see me only through the eyes of devotion. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatpata tato mam tatpate gyatva vishade tat anantaram. So one can perceive and see the Lord only by the eyes of love, by devotional service to the Lord. Another place also, the Lord talks about bhakti, that only through bhakti one can perceive me. So there are many verses in the Bhagavatam as well in the Bhagavad Gita where, and the Puranas also, where there is, in fact, Upanishads also, which is not stated directly, but there are um, clear meanings to it. So throughout the scripture, it is mentioned that the Lord can be visible to someone whom He Himself chooses. So the Lord reveals Himself only to someone whom He Himself will reveal. It's not by our efforts, it's not by any external circumstance or external factor, but He will Himself choose. Now, He will choose, but His choice is also based on our efforts, like that. So, see, the point is that you may be able to see God, like in the previous yugas, but if you are demon, then what is the use of seeing God also? Because even after seeing God, you still want to destroy God. You still want to defeat God. You want to kill God. So that's why the previous acharyas they mention this point that when the Lord appeared to the demons in front of demons, the demons could only see the reflection of the Lord. They could not see the Lord as it is, as He is. They only could perceive the reflection of the Lord. So they were not able to see the Lord as He was, as His main Swarup Shakti is. So this is what we need to understand. Even if you are able to see the Lord, the most important point is whether you will be able to serve Him, whether you will be able to surrender to His instructions, whether you will be able to uh, dedicate your life to Him after seeing Him. So this did not happen in any of the yugas because I mean in Satyuga anyways people were they were spiritually minded. Almost everyone was spiritually minded, but in Trita Yuga, in Dwapar Yuga, it got reduced, and finally in Kali Yuga, hardly anyone can understand and know God and see God. Okay, so uh, even if you can see God, you will not be able to surrender to Him. Will not because if the Lord will come and He will tell you, "Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshami ma sucha." If you are too much attached to your material desires, your conditionings, your or you want to fulfill your desires, you have certain goals in your life, you want to earn money. If you are attached to them, then even if you see Lord and if He asks you to surrender to Him, He will also tell you that don't worry about any previous activity or any sinful activity. I will take care of everything. Still, you will not be able to surrender to Him because that requires your own personal choice and desire to establish loving relationship with Him, to sacrifice everything, and to um, renounce everything for the pleasure of the Lord. So this requires a lot of purification. It requires maturity in terms of our own um inclination to serve the Lord. And this we can also see in the material world. You cannot love someone unless you are completely mature. And in fact, you start understanding what is true love after you become, come you grow to a certain age, or you experience a lot of things in your life. Then you start understanding the meaning of love. Then you realize, oh, actually, love is not in externals. It is basically all about internal factors. So you love someone selflessly, and then you understand what is actually meaning of selfless love, where you just want to please the other person without any conditions, without any expectations. This is a very rare circumstance in material world, especially in Kali Yuga. You'll not find this kind of love anywhere. So that's why, in order to come to that purification stage or to mature stage of love, we have to undergo a certain process. See, there is a path given. If you want to really love God, if you really want to see God, it's not that He is not going to appear to you. That is not going to be the case because if He does not appear, then how the devotees will be satisfied? How they will feel that whatever path they are following is justified at the end. So that's why the Lord does appear to the devotee, but He appears in the heart. That means individually he will give darshan to the devotee who has matured in his love for him. So that's why our acharyas, they have given stages of devotion, very logical and step by step stages. How, if you really want to see God, and each and every stage makes a lot of sense, and you can also see whatever symptoms of a particular stage is described in the scripture, that you can literally experience in your life. So, what are the stages? So, these are eight, nine stages: Shraddha, Sadhu Sang, Bhajan Kriya, Anartha Nivriti, Nishtha, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhav, and the ninth one is Prem. Ninth is love of God. So it is described in the scripture that unless you are in the state of bhav, when you come to the state of bhav, you cannot see God face to face with your gross material eyes. In fact, at the state of bhav, our body becomes spiritualized because the Samvit and the Lalini Shakti of the Lord, which are the Chit Shakti of the Lord, the Swarup Shakti, which is spiritual in nature, it is not material, that will enter our body and that will make our body spiritualized, because only with spiritual senses we can actually see the Lord. Okay, so Shraddha is what? Yes.
So when you're saying that there are these so many stages as told to us by our learned acharyas, so see in this is modern world, and everything is presented as something as very scientific. Science is what impresses everyone. People very easily accept when anything is presented to them under the category of science. So, and we also say that this is the science of self-realization. So, spirituality is also supposed to be actually science, though the modern world tends to put the narrative that it is God versus science. Actually, it is not, that is not the truth. But this is how it is presented in the narrative. So, can we, uh, just like in a science experiment, it is given that when you follow these steps, step one, step two, step three, then under these conditions, you will definitely get this result. Every time those steps are followed, this result is guaranteed. So, similarly, can we commit to the younger generation that these so called uh, stages, if somebody is following the process very faithfully, if 100 people follow, then 100 out of 100 will get to the stage where they can see God one to one. It is that guaranteed and that repeatable. Can we put that proposition?
Yeah, of course. I mean, guaranteed. It is 100% guaranteed. In fact, see, you don't even have to wait till the stage of bhava and prema, because once the stages at the lower and the intermediate level start working for you, then your faith will automatically develop. That, so you, once you cross anartha nivriti, then comes the state of steadiness, nishtha. This state of steadiness means your faith becomes very strong, it becomes steady. No matter what, it will always be strong. It will not waver. So, but yeah, coming to the basics, coming from the starting point of the stages. Now, why do I say that it is 100% guaranteed? Is because it's not that only after coming to bhava you will realize something, or at all these levels, all these stages, you will get symptoms and experiences of what is described in scriptures. So, like, the fact that you are proceeding, you are going ahead to another stage, that itself indicates that it's a science because you are experiencing that. Okay. And it's a scientific process because science is what? You just experiment something, you make a law, and you apply that law in the material world, you experiment it, and the law will, it will have a, whatever you have made, whatever equation, whatever result that you get from that equation, if that comes out to be true, then you conclude that it's a scientific process. So similarly, This also you have to experience on your own. When you practice it, when you implement it, then you will also get a corresponding result of it. And that result will correspond to the what is described in the scriptures. So it will definitely make your conviction stronger. And you will also start feeling that, yeah, God does really exist. Because who is reciprocating with our effort? Nature cannot reciprocate. Who is reciprocating? Whatever we are desiring, who is hearing that desire? And who is fulfilling that desire? It's not that I'm asking something else and God is giving me something else, right? So what you desire, that is reciprocated by someone. So that will enhance your faith. Okay. This is one thing. This is one natural sequence of process where you can see it by results. Another thing is, another scientific process is that, see, there is the science. Although we know that we have the material science, but then there is the science of emotions also. So I've spoken this in a couple of my classes that everyone, every human being, every living entity, they display the same symptoms. Whenever someone is upset, or whenever someone is in pain, in distress, then they are not going to laugh. They are going to cry. Their expressions, mood, and everything is going to be, it's a uniform pattern that you observe amongst all living entities. When you are very happy, you laugh a lot. Okay. So when you are envious, then your heart will burn. Everyone heart is going to burn when they are going to be envious, right? So all these symptoms, when you are very much possessive of something, you become very greedy, and then your greed will not allow you to calm down, to satisfy. It will keep burning from within. So you will try to acquire more and more, more and more. So see, this is a science of emotion that is same for every living entity. If if this was random, then we could have said that, that okay, uh, it's coming from nothing, it's coming from chemicals, because you cannot predict the response, you cannot predict how you're going to behave. But it is same for everyone. That means there is a law which is governing all these emotions. And then, now you remove emotions, you only have material achievements. Let's say you remove emotions. For an atheistic person also, emotions are very important, because how the atheistic person is going to feel satisfied in his life? How is he going to feel that I have achieved something in my life? How is he going to feel happy in his life? How is he going to express his pain? By seeing someone else suffering. So emotions, they are more important than material things, or material, you know um, like, so there is the material science, and then there is the science of emotions. So you cannot remove science of emotions. With material science, you have to accept science of emotion. If you remove that, does it will not make any sense. Even a scientist who has invented the nuclear weapon, he feels proud because he is doing something for his country, or maybe something for his own selfish desires. But he's feeling proud about it. He's happy about it. He's satisfied about it. So if these emotions are not there, how are you going to feel anything? And what is the use of your efforts also? There is a, see, every person has a goal. He wants to achieve something. And whether it is positive, negative, that is irrespective. But every person has to express emotions. So the fact that emotions are existing in a person, that itself proves that there is a science, not just about the body, but something which is going behind the body also. And now the question is that who has created that emotion, and why the emotions are there, and why it is uniform in everyone, right? So this is something very important, which I think people ignore, they overlook. they don't realize that without emotions, you know, even if you have the best gadget in the world, if you are isolated, if you cannot express yourself, what is the use of it? What are you going to do about it? Today, in this current generation, people are also crazy and they are investing so much time on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. What is that all about? Why do we call it a social media network? Social media itself means social interaction. So that interaction itself indicates that you want some reciprocation from someone. You are expressing your emotions, and then you are expecting in return that other person will also express their emotion. So one thing is very clear, that emotions are most important in everyone's life, and this is exactly what the stages of bhakti will give you. So emotions at different stages, maturity at different stages, love, mature love at different stages. So it is mentioned that at the stage of Shraddha, there is small faith in the Lord. You start with small faith. You may not have that much conviction in the Lord, but if even if you think that God exists, or you believe that okay, someone has to exist, some controller has to exist, start with that faith. Then, if you have that faith, you cultivate that faith by going to people who have that faith, who have stronger faith. So sadhu sang. Next step is sadhu sang, and then the sadhus will tell you how to practice the faith, how to implement it. That is called bhajana kriya, because you start performing bhajan, you start actually implementing whatever they have instructed you. So see, this is like similar to if you want to meet someone like uh, a big personality like Mukesh Ambani. So how do you meet? How do you prove him? You will not. He will not be interested to meet you unless you are his relative or his relative's relative, or someone very important for him. He will not be willing to meet you. So you have to prove yourself to him if you really want to see him, meet him personally. And then what will happen? The first thing you will do is you will find out what is the way to meet him. You have the conviction, small faith you have that it is possible. I can meet him at some point of time. So then what you will do? You will start researching. How do I meet this person? What is the best way to meet the person? So then you go and meet those people who are close to that person, because they know how the best way to meet quickly, right? So that is basically you associate with his intimate people, those who are close to him. That is sadhu sang. Sadhus are close to the Lord because they are dear to the Lord. Then they will tell that person that okay, this is the way you have to meet him, this is how you have to prove him, and then you can meet him. So you start following that. So that is bhajana kriya, and in the process you may struggle a lot. You will face a lot of discouragement. Sometimes you'll be encouraged, and then you may be discouraged to a point that you may think that I don't want to meet, now I have given up. But then someone will come and encourage you. So that is the process of anartha nivritti, where you struggle with your conditionings. But if you are determined, then you will overcome that and become steady. Your conviction becomes steady, and no matter what comes, you will still have the desire to meet him. And then finally, so this is the state of nishtha, steadiness. And then naturally, you will be inclined to um, give your best. That will be natural to you. So, in spite of struggles, you become steady, and then after steadiness, you attain a very naturally, um, like something which will come out of your interest. That is the state of ruchi. And then asakti means that you get attached to that process. While practicing, you become so attached. Now, at every stage, there are some symptoms which you will experience. So, at the stage of nishtha, you will see the symptoms of being steady in your devotional practices. Then you'll be able to discriminate between different types of devotees. You'll be able to understand the glories of the Lord, the nature of the Lord. In all these stages, you will see the reciprocation of the Lord in your life. You desire something, the Lord will reciprocate with your desire. And then you also will understand that even if there is some suffering, there is some plan of the Lord, higher plan of the Lord. So that you will also realize after some time, and your faith will grow. So you will become attracted to the qualities of the Lord. You will become attached to Him, asakti, and then you'll experience. See, unless you are attached to a person, you cannot experience emotions. You cannot express um, emotions. So the emotions can only be expressed after being attached to the person, right? So that is asakti. You become attached, and then bhav. So bhav is the stage where you express your emotions to the person. There'll be a lot of symptoms of ecstasy. So that all these symptoms are described in the scriptures, and you'll exhibit those symptoms. So that is bhav, and then finally the Lord will appear and He will give you darshan. So that is the stage of, at the stage of bhav you can actually experience Lord, and at the stage of prem, the fully ripened stage of love, at that stage you will be able to see the Lord face to face. So this is the way to see the Lord. Okay. Now it is mentioned that anartha nivritti itself takes a long time. It takes multiple lifetimes. It can take millions of lifetimes. It can take thousands, hundreds, depending on our desire, depending on our efforts. So it can be long time or it can be a shorter time. So you can just imagine at what stage we can, like, bhava and prema is such a high stage after anartha nivritti. So that stage we can actually see the Lord face to face. So I hope it makes sense. Like any person who is like the best in the world, to meet him, it requires efforts. It is not cheap. So what to speak of the Lord, who is actually the creator, the annihilator, and the maintainer of the entire universes, and the supreme controller of everything. So in order to meet him, to see him, we also have to put efforts. We have to follow a process, path. Then we can see him. So I hope it makes
Okay,
sense. How we can see God.
correct, correct. So when we see the parallels with the material world where we are already experiencing the cause, we see the cause and its effect. Similarly, in this spiritual path, uh, can we just in material world, just like we have these universities which are very very famous and uh, rated very highly because they produce very good engineers or doctors, okay, professionals like IIT for engineers. So it's a brand. If anybody passes out IIT means he's definitely a good engineer. You can bet on that. Similarly, do we have such organizations or institutes where wonderful spiritual beings are churned out and they have experience of God, direct experience of God? Or is it that they have to go through a suffering, lot of suffering, and suffering is very important, and only then God is pleased and He makes the appearance? Or there is a set thing that you follow this procedure, and definitely people are seeing God, and they are seeing that such a institute is there where people are passing out from this institute have got very high percentage result that they are seeing God.
Yeah, definitely. See, ultimately, the institution or the organization, it is some instrument to cultivate our spiritual lives, practice. Because without organization, it is very difficult in Kali Yuga to encourage ourselves. We cannot do bhakti alone. We require the help of others also. So, in order to create a support system, we also require organizations and institutions. And these are all spiritually connected. It is not that because it's an organization, it is material or it has nothing to do with spirituality. But the purpose of these organizations is to facilitate spiritual lives to a very great extent, to make things very easier, to simplify things. Like, you see, the now the thing is, If you want to establish temples, now temple, what is a temple? The temple is the manifestation of the Lord in this particular material world. The deity form is directly the manifestation of the Lord in the material world. But then, what exactly is the philosophy of that particular faith or belief? So that is represented by a particular section of spiritual people. Like for example, you want to love God, you want to make a connection with God, you go to a temple. But then you want to understand who is God, who are we, then it basically comes to knowing a philosophy. So that philosophy, in order to have the same philosophy along with the temple everywhere, you need an organization. So see, basically the connection of organization to the temple is via the medium of its philosophy. So like for example, ISKCON is one of the organization, Vadiyamat is one of the organizations, you have the Art of Living as one of the organizations, you have Osho as one of the organizations. I don't know what they call the institution. And then you have the Sadguru Foundation. I don't know again what is
Isha,
the
Isha
Isha
Foundation.
Foundation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so see, just by calling out the names, just by saying that I am from this organization, that organization is a secondary thing. But what the organization represent is the philosophy of that or particular established, you know, purpose or why that organization is established. So ISKCON, it is called as International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and from that it is clear that it is meant for reviving our Krishna consciousness. So similarly, different organizations, they are called by different names, and that names also gives the idea of philosophy. So each organization is connected to a philosophy. Okay, and that's how we are worshipping the Lord in the temple. So that is the uh, main reason for the functioning of the organization. It so that way it also becomes a spiritual entity. It's not just material; it becomes a spiritual entity because it clearly puts down the philosophy, what it believes, what that particular, because so now anywhere you go, whichever ISKCON temple you go, you know that ISKCON believes in this philosophy. So it's not that one temple in ISKCON is going to have another philosophy from another temple. So that's how we understand that unanimously ISKCON is present throughout the world by its philosophy. Okay. So it is like accredited university, as you were asking about whether there are universities which, because we know IITs are there, we know that they are the best engineers. So similarly, there are organizations which will provide you pure spiritual knowledge, and if you apply now, there is no force, there is no mandatory attendance in these organizations, in contrast with universities where we have to go, we have to attend classes, we have to put our attendance, it is mandatory, some percentage is mandatory, you have to give exams. So this is something which is voluntary. You voluntarily do it, you believe in it, you practice it, it's all voluntarily, no one can force you. That is the only difference. So if you do it, then yeah, you will follow, and then you follow that and you will get the results of that. But not everyone is able to follow it completely, because people are also influenced by their own karmas and conditionings from the previous lives. So it takes good amount of time for the purification to happen. And compared to the time frame of Brahma, which is 1,000 cycles of the Divya Yugas, multiply by 100 years of Brahma's time period. So um, one day of Brahma equals 1,000 cycles of Divya Yugas. Divya Yuga is the four Yugas summed up together. So that is just 12 hours of Brahma. And then into two will give you the entire 24 hours. And Brahma also lives for 100 years. And 1 year is 365 days. So 365 into 1,000 into 4 yugas, the duration of the total of 4 yugas, that is 1 year. And then into 100, that is the total lifespan of Brahma. In that, compared to that lifespan, the result we achieve is you will feel that it is instant. So when the scriptures say that you'll quickly see the result when you chant the holy name, or when you perform any limb of bhakti, you'll see the result quickly. Quickly it destroys everything. Quickly it destroys the anarthas. Quickly all the qualities of the demigods are manifested. But that is in context to the time frame of Brahma. See, the scriptures, they are transcendental. So they are seeing from a higher angle, higher vision. We are always thinking of our lifetime. But scriptures also know that you are talking about your lifetime and you are insignificant. Your population in the Earth planet is insignificant compared to that which is in heavenly planets, in uh, in the lower planetary system, upper planetary system, and in the spiritual world. So scriptures knows all this because it is seeing from a higher perspective. So that's why when they say that okay, you will achieve this quickly, it means that from our perspective it can take a long time, but from the perspective of the demigods, it is instantaneous, right? Like that. So it all depends on individual efforts ultimately. How serious you are in following the path. You have to follow the path, you have to implement it. Then you can see the result immediately. But if you don't follow, you also are aware, you also know this is my conditioning, I am not able to follow certain things, then you'll get stuck up. Yeah. So this is a logical, common sense thing. In any path, you will experience this.
Okay, so there is significance of these organizations and these institutions, right? Because that is where you get authentic knowledge. And but you see, it is also known that uh, God is a very personal matter because God chooses. He may give uh, the power of vision to one person and not to another because one may have reached a certain stage, the other may not have reached. So it's a very personal dealing between the devotee and God. So if it is so personal and people can then even practice this at their home, why do we need such huge temples? A small temple in the houses should be good enough for anyone to engage in that devotional activity and uh, increase his potency of his devotional level and have that direct interaction with God. Why do we need such huge temples? Because when there are huge temples, there will be a lot of money involved, and somehow when there is money, then people get corrupted. So it appears that money becomes the central focus when such huge temples are involved, and the consciousness of the person gets it's hijacked from the devotional to again material. So why do we money is involved? Even then it appears even the temple is going after money. Devotees are going after money. So do we need such big temples?
Okay. So, see, first of all, the purpose of temple, as I already shared, that provide, it is to facilitate a spiritual atmosphere, to make it very easy, to simplify it. See, unless you don't have temples, you cannot have, you not even know where are devotees located in the world. So, first thing that you do, see, if you are a devotee of a particular, you connect to a particular path, you follow that path, and that path is connected to some organization. And if the organization is not present throughout the world, then you become isolated. If the organization is present throughout the world, what you do is, if you go outside, the first thing you will do is you will try to find out where is this particular temple, which the particular temple that you are connected to, or the organization. You try to find out, and then you want to go there because you feel very connected, and you will be able to find out similar people also, similar minded people. So in order to have the association of saintly people, this is the best way to connect, because you'll never know where are all these saintly peoples, where are they living, what they are doing. And without, in Kali Yuga especially, it is very difficult to practice bhakti all alone, sitting in the house. So even you are sitting in the house, you still want to be connected with others. And when you connect with others, you want to meet them. So where will you go to meet them? The only place you go to meet them is the temple. You cannot go to a park, you cannot go to a church, you cannot go to some theater. You need some space where you can freely participate in activities of devotion, where
Like a
everyone is
spiritual
together.
club kind of thing.
So what is that? Ultimately, it will become a temple, because when you see, when you, even if devotees will conglomerate, what they will do, they will want to have the Lord also to worship. So then they will invite deities. The place where the deity is residing becomes a temple. So finally, it became a temple. Now, if you want the same philosophy and same temple to be established throughout the world, that becomes an organization. So it is common sense. People, they just want to see. The problem is that they are only seeing the externals of the temple or the organization, because they see that, okay, devotees in the temple also, they are making money and they are earning through, in the form of restaurants, in the form of guest houses. Like, they have made it like a hotel business for themselves. They are seeing the externals. They are not seeing why it is made, what is the purpose, and they are not trying to check exactly how it is run. So there are a lot of sincere people also who are behind the show, and there is a purpose for it. So the best advantage that someone can receive is they are the devotees ultimately, because when devotees travel outside, they generally prefer to stay in the temple because of the environment, because they would like to attend arti, they would like to attend classes, they would like to attend programs, um, they would like to meet devotees, right? They would like to associate with similar minded people and stay in that environment. So all these benefits are meant for, ultimately, for the devotees. Now, obviously, there will be a price for it, because temple is a place where one is supposed to donate. You cannot make business out of temple. See, the entire principle of bhakti is based on devotional service to the Lord. We want to serve the Lord, and temple is a via medium, is a platform to serve the Lord. It is the Lord's house. So when we want to serve the Lord, we want to go to the temple in the mood of service, not in the mood of exploiting and asking from the Lord. So temple deities, these are all connected to the Lord directly, and that's why our Sanatan culture, you know, it is assumed that when you go to temple, you will donate something for the service of Lord. Now, if there are devotees who are stealing the money and they are enjoying for their own sense gratification, then that is definitely wrong. They should not be allowed to stay in the temple. Only those devotees who are pure in their dealings, and they will just, the temple will maintain them, because they are serving full time just for the basic needs. But overall, the contribution of the devotees to the temple is more than what they are earning. So that becomes a great service. So yeah, so these things are important to understand. And I think I'm not sure if you were the one with whom I had this podcast of have temples been commercialized. I think maybe I did with Adityanath.
Okay.
So in detail, I'll explain all these principles. Yeah.
Right. So, is there
So
anything else
whatever,
also
see,
you?
whether it is a restaurant or whether it is a guest house. Now, restaurant is for, again, they offered food to the Lord, and it becomes prasad, and that prasad uh, they are also serving. So the devotees are the ones who are going to take advantage of it, because we it's recommended that we have prasad as much as possible, so that our tongue is controlled. Okay, and better not to eat outside. Then we always prefer to have prasad. And uh, the guest house is also, as I told you, that it is again for the benefit of those people who want to take that experience. So, like, of course, if the institution organization is using people's money for their own pockets, for their own sense gratification, enjoyment, then it is wrong. But if they are doing it as a service, selfless service to humanity, in the context of giving them spiritual knowledge, the entire purpose of everything is to educate people about God. So when people come from outside, they stay in the temple, they will get some vibes, positive vibes. They will they will take darshan of the Lord. They will have prasadam also. By maximum chance of connecting them with some spiritual, uh, uh, like limbs of bhakti. Like so many different types of limbs of bhakti. So they get connected, they acquire sukriti, and then gradually they will be attracted to the Lord, or they will be eager to know about the Lord, and they will become devotees also. So all this is done to enhance the spread of the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, spiritual knowledge, so that people become aware of it and they become interested in spiritual life. So this is all done because of that. Now, that's why we have some very good facilities at the temple, because in this day and age, people they cannot go to the forest. They cannot. Everyone requires air condition, especially when you are in hot cities, and everyone requires proper facility, uh, sitting arrangement. Everything has to be good. Then only people will come. Otherwise, very less chances of people coming. So all this is created for that purpose. I mean, this is the main purpose of establishing restaurants, guest houses, auditoriums, or um, halls, so that people can come. They can actually become interested in spiritual life. So this should be the main center, the main reason for the organization activities. If they deviate from that, then definitely it's not at all appreciated, and they should rectify it. But this is the main purpose.
Right. So I think you have elaborated quite in detail to put across these various points about how the organization plays a part, becomes a center for associating with various like-minded beings, where one that's how one is able to nurture the the devotion and then build upon it through the
Yeah.
processes which are set.
Another very important point is that, see, in Kali Yuga, the Lord, see, what is the Yug Dharma in Kali Yuga? It is Harinam Sankirtan. It is not Harinam Japa. Now the Lord wants devotees to do things together. He wants to see cooperation of devotees. Individually, he does not appreciate. So even if you are a perfect devotee, you do everything perfectly. I mean, this is a verse in the scripture. It says that if a devotee thinks, or even if it does everything perfectly, all the practices of devotional services perfectly, the sadhana bhakti, but if he does not please the devotee, or if he does not, um, you know, uh, like the exact translation of that verse. Uh, Anyways, but the gist of that verse is that if a devotee does individually, it tries to please the Lord individually without taking the help of devotees, then the Lord says that there is no guarantee that he will achieve perfection, in spite of perfectly carrying out all the practices of sadhana bhakti. There is no guarantee. And then he says, but if the devotee, in spite of being faulty in his practices, if he takes shelter of my devotee, then there is guarantee that he is going to achieve perfection. So basically, the process, the Lord wants to show very clearly that in Kali Yuga you cannot be individual. You have to be a united group,
Sangha. You need Sangha.
Sangha. So Harinam Sankirtan. It is not Harinam Japa. Japa is done in isolation. But individual strength will also contribute in the group. Like for example, if in a cricket team, so there is a batsman, there is a bowler, there is a field person, all of these they contribute something to the entire cricket team. If you do not have these personality, now see, if there is no good batsman in that, even if you have a batsman in the team, but if that batsman is useless, he does not play well, he does not know how to play properly, then his contribution is not going to be significant, right? So that's why individual strength is also important, but finally collective strength becomes more important. So that's why this example is also there. When the father sees that the children they are fighting amongst themselves and they are not listening to the instruction of father, so he feels that if they fight, then outside people will take advantage of it and they will try to create some disharmony between them, and finally they'll take advantage of them. So what he does, because they do not listen to him, his instructions, he calls them and he tells them that, okay, all of you take one stick or one branch of tree, and then he is asking them to break that branch. So individually everyone will break it. It is not so difficult. But then what he does, then he takes all these multiple branches and he will tie them up, and then he will ask each one of them to break it. So they try it, but none of them can, they are able to break it. So then they understand what the father is trying to tell us, that individually if you work, then all of you will break down after some time, and external people will take advantage of you. So better you stay united. Although there will be difference of opinions, there will be conflicts, you will go slow in your path, but you will surely reach the goal. Whereas individually you may go faster sometimes, but when you will fall in such a way that you will never come back. Only you will not have the strength to reach the goal. So this is the um, main intention behind why we have to do it in groups. In Kali Yuga, see, it is mentioned that it was uh, in Satyuga, austerity was done, meditation and austerity was done. Then in Trita Yuga, fire sacrifices was given a lot of prominence. In Dwapar Yuga, temple worship, and in Kali Yuga, Harinam Sankirtan. Now, uh, but that Nam Sankirtan can be effectively chanted only when devotees will unite themselves. Okay. And something very interesting in Kali Yuga, to cooperate with one another, it is the most difficult austerity that you can even perform in Satyuga. Cooperation in Kali Yuga, because everyone is so conditioned by one's ego, to put aside one's own selfish desire and to allow others to proceed, that requires a lot of guts. It requires a lot of austerity or sacrifice. So in Kali Yuga, cooperation is extreme. Like His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he mentions this in his, I think, journey with him. He says that I have seen so many yogis in the Himalayas. They have done so much tapasya, austerities, and then finally concludes that what I have observed is that all these austerities, all these tapasyas, they are all insignificant when it comes to cooperation in Kali Yuga. So cooperation amongst individuals is actually very important thing. You'll see that even in Raslila also, Krishna first left all the gopis for Shrimati Radharani, and then Krishna also left Radharani. Now, what was the purpose of Krishna leaving behind Shrimati Radharani also? The only purpose was that because they all developed pride, which was definitely a spiritual pride, it was not nothing to do with material ego. This is just an example which is set by the Raslila. So ultimately he left Radharani also. Why? The only purpose was Krishna wanted all the gopis to unite with each other, to become favorable to each other. Because there were some gopis who were Radha's friend, and there were some gopis who were opposed to Radha. So he wanted to destroy this opposing mentality, and he wanted to bring this unified mentality. So that's why he left all of them, and then all of them, they started feeling sympathetic towards each other, and then they became very intimately united to each other. So at that particular moment, Krishna appeared in front of them, and then they are the Raslila. I
Very
mean,
nice.
they had pastimes, So basically, like Sripad Indra Prabhu also, he says that Sankirtan is like Raslila. Sankirtan is like you, all the devotees combine, come together, and in unison, with one mind, with one heart, they all call out to the Lord. So when we together call out to the Lord, it's a collective effort. So the Lord is much more pleased by this collective effort than individual effort, because individual effort brings pride, but collective effort you will feel insignificant, because your contribution is amongst millions of people is just one out of million. So you'll feel
Mm.
insignificant. So in that insignificant state, in that humility, when you call out to the Lord, then the Lord is extremely pleased with that attitude. So this cooperative spirit is very important, and this is the basis of why the Lord says that devotees should come together and they should take shelter. So that's why individual process is not at all recommended in Kali Yuga. Even if someone does things independently and they may have that perfection, but the Lord says that if they have this mentality that they will not approach any devotee, then he will not attain perfection. There's no guarantee. But a devotee, even if at fault, if he is connected to some other devotees, some authorities, then by their, see, if one devotee is connected to 100 devotees, if he is very dear to 100 devotees, even if he is out of 10 activities of bhakti, if he performs only one properly, but he's got blessings of 100 devotees, so that blessings of 100 devotees can equalize, it can become equivalent to 10 activities of bhakti performed properly, because he has got blessings of so many devotees, so many Vaishnavas. Whereas if one activity, he does all the 10 activities, but he has no blessings, or he's not connected to anyone, then that is not going to impress the Lord. Also, by cultivating bhakti oneself, one will never understand what stage we are in currently. We'll never know. We'll always be in illusion that we are going ahead, but actually you may fall down. Your consciousness may fall down. You'll never realize that. So only by scrutiny from some superior, which is all common everywhere. Like you want to learn something, you have to approach a higher authority, learn from him, get rectification, get feedback, improve yourself, and go further. So the same applies in spiritual principles also. So this is the concept.
Hmm. Correct. Very wonderful, Prabhuji. So I think we've come towards the end of the session now,
Yeah,
and if more questions are coming, then maybe we can have another part of this as a next
yeah.
session.
I think so. We'll have a second session because there are some couple of questions which the audience they have about the why devotees suffer, and second question they ask is that even devotees they are after money, and they are also, it seems that they are also chasing money, and not just the devotees but temple also keeps asking money. So if God is really there, then why are they, and they say that money is secondary to the worship of Lord. So why they are giving so
Yeah.
much importance to money? So these two questions we can cover in the next class, next session. Uh, yeah,
Yes.
because they're very important questions. So why do
Sure.
devotees suffer? And it appears that because sometimes it appears that atheistic people, or uh, people who criticize devotees, they they prosper, and devotees sometimes they suffer. So how is this to be seen? And what is really real prosperity in the life of devotee? So this we can answer in the next session.
Yes. Okay. Okay, Pratikji, thank you so much for this session, and we look forward to the next one soon.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Rajiv, for your time, and
Namaskar.
we'll cover in the next session. Thank you.